As many of you guys know, I am currently on ChatGPT Pro plan, which means I have access to OpenAI Operator, O1 Pro, and the new kid on the block that everyone's been talking about, Deep Research. But all this is hidden behind a $200 a month paywall. And quite frankly, not everyone can afford that, nor do some people want to give this money up to a closed source company. But at the same time, you've probably seen the hype online, and Deep Search is definitely great and very impressive, to say the least. It can spend 5 to 10 minutes and compile PhD level reasoning for different topics, and it is just insane the results that some people have been able to get with it. Now, if you've been following this channel the last few days, you'll know that we actually uploaded 3 different videos showing you 3 different ways that you can get around that $200 a month and use open source alternatives. So we've covered so far open source deep research, a very powerful CLI tool. We've covered WebUI, which has a DeepSeek functionality, as well as an operator alternative to OpenAI's operator. And then yesterday we covered another wrapper, which is a GUI interface for the CLI Open Deep Research project. Now, I've been getting a lot of different comments because many people are interested in this deep research, and people are wondering what is the best tool to use for deep research. Should you go with the open source tools? Should you pay the $200 a month? Well, in today's video, I'm going to show you exactly how to set up each and every one of these different tools. And I'm also going to do a comparison between each and every one so you can decide which one is best for you in your particular use case, and if you should go with the open source versions or the closed source versions. I'm going to compare all these tools, so let's dive in and start doing some deep research now. Alright guys, so all links I cover in today's video will be in the description down below. I'm also going to be using this document here that I made, and we're going to be putting all the different links here, the resources, the prompts, as well as the actual research output from today's video, so you can analyze the comparison on your own time if you want and see which tool gets the best output. Now, if you want access to this entire document, it is going to be 100% for free. I'm going to be posting it in the Stride AI Academy. If you're not familiar with that, that is our free community on this channel where you can network with other like-minded AI entrepreneurs or AI developers in this space. And I'm also posting all the templates, resources, tools, frameworks, videos, and behind-the-scenes stuff on this channel in this community. So you're definitely going to want to join. Just go to the link that I leave down below for the Stride community and request to join, and then you'll be able to access the document right away. All right, guys, so before we actually dive into the tests, I want to quickly go over setting up these tools. Now, I've linked all the separate videos that I've done to each one of these tools in depth. So if you want to see a step-by-step walkthrough on setting up each and every one, check out the full video for the specific tool. I've also linked the GitHubs for all the different tools, as well as the docs and different tools that are associated with some of these. So for example, you can see the Firecrawl API docs here, or browser use. So let's talk about the actual open source deep research CLI version right here. All right, so here is the GitHub repo. This is an AI-powered research assistant that performs iterative deep research on any topic by combining search engines, web scraping, and large language models. This is how it specifically works. You have input, you have a depth parameter, a breadth parameter, and a user query. It starts doing deep research, gathers SERP queries, pulls different results, has different directions and or learnings, analyzes the depth, and then either performs a markdown report or next directions, has prior goals, new questions, and learnings. All right, so this tool is great, but it does just use the CLI. And here's the setup here. You simply clone the repository, you install the dependencies running npm install, you set your environment variables in the .env.local file, make sure it's .env.local, so you're gonna copy the example one and then paste in your API keys. And then you're simply just going to run npm start to actually run the assistant, and then it's actually going to run within your command line. I went through that very quick. You know, like I said, if you want to use the CLI version, check out my video on it, and the instructions are right here in the GitHub repo for you. But I know most of you would prefer a nice GUI interface, which is why we're going to be covering the Another Wrapper project, where if you didn't see my video yesterday, it's essentially built with this CLI in the back end to do all the deep research, but it's using their nice user interface GUI. And this is what it actually looks like. So you can go to their cloud version right here, anotherwrapper.com, and you'll be able to actually access and do deep research if you just configure your API keys right here within their cloud version. And I'm going to show you this in just a second, but I'm going to show you on the actual self-hosted version. But you can change your breadth and depth parameters right here. So you have, it's cool because you can't do that functionality with an OpenAI's deep research. It just actually goes about and does the specific deep research for, it could be 5 minutes or it could be 20 minutes, depending on the specific question you ask it. But here you can actually change these parameters, which will affect how in depth it's going to go about doing your research, which is very nice. So here's the GitHub repo for that GUI right here. And I'm going to quickly show you how you can actually set it up and self-host it before we run some tests on it. So you're simply going to do the exact same thing I just went over. We're going to git clone this repo right here. Then we're going to change directory into Open Deep Research. And then we're going to run npm install. So you can literally just copy all of this if you don't know too much about commands, paste it in right here, and then run it. I'm not going to do that because I've actually already ran it, but that's what you're going to do. Once you do that, you're going to want to configure your environment variables. So I always like opening it either in cursor or in VS Code. So you're going to run code dot or cursor dot. Okay, and then you'll see a .env.example. You can make a copy of that and rename it to .env. And then you're going to paste in your OpenAI API key as well as your Firecrawl API key. Now, if you don't have a Firecrawl API key, simply go to Firecrawl right here, sign up, get an API key, and paste that bad boy in. Now, the one downside personally is Firecrawl is great, but there is some limitations and there are credits. So if you're using this a lot, you may actually run out of credits or have to actually pay for credits. So I personally usually prefer using something like Crawl for AI. And now at the moment, there's no native integration. But I actually may look into playing around with some of this and seeing if I can maybe tweak some of this and fork it for you guys and then do a video on that. So if you want me to do that and see if I can get something ready for you guys, maybe let me know in the comments down below. Now, once you do that, you're simply just going to run npm run dev. So it's the exact same as the, CLI version, and it's going to start on localhost 3000. Okay, and boom, now we have our localhost version right here. We're going to come back to this in just a second when we start running our tests. All right, so the last open source project right now is WebUI open source. And guys, if you know of any other open source deep research projects or whatnot, let me know in the comments down below and I may do a video on it. So let's go ahead and check out this repo here. All right, so this project builds upon the foundation of browser use. I've done a video on browser use. It's essentially like an OpenAI operator, and you can build out custom code within Python to use browser use. It's really awesome, really cool project, and it's made by the same people who made that. But WebUI is a nice GUI for that, and it also has deep research capabilities, which is really, really cool. This is a very powerful tool. So we're going to start by cloning the repository and then changing directory into WebUI. So exact same process that we always do. All right, next you're going to want to have UV installed. So this is for managing your Python environment. So simply just go here, make sure you have UV installed, and then you're going to run in the command line UV and then venv for virtual environment, and then Python 3.11. Make sure you have Python installed too if you don't. And then depending on what system you're on, whether it's Linux or Windows or Mac, you're going to run one of the following commands. So on Windows, you're either going to run this for the command prompt or this for PowerShell right here to activate your virtual environment. And then for Mac or Linux, you're just going to run this command right here. Okay, all this is literally linked in the description within the repo. And if you're having trouble with any of these installations, check out my individual video on that specific project so you can actually get some help with that. And then you're simply going to install the dependencies. So install Python requirements like so, run this command, and then you're going to install Playwright. This is all within the same terminal. And then you're going to configure your environment variables just like we did. So I like opening it in cursor or VS Code. So once you have that open, you're going to see e.env.example. You're going to make a clone of that. And you can add your OpenAI API key, your Anthropic API key, your Google API key. You have a lot more options than some of the other alternatives, which makes me really like this because you can really use this with any model almost. Well, really any model, because you have an Llama endpoint right here, so you can use it with open source models as well. And you can also change your OpenAI endpoint, so if you could point any provider you want and actually use an OpenAI operator or OpenAI deep research alternative for free, which is very, very nice and powerful. Then once you got those API keys set up, you're simply just going to run this right here. So Python webui.py, and then the IP right here, and then the port right here. So you can simply just copy this and run it. Once you run that command right here, it's going to start everything up on port 7788. Okay, and like I mentioned, I'm leaving the docs in the description for browser use. So if you need any help, you can check out the docs right here. It explains every single thing. All right, so now we have all the different ones that we're going to be testing set up. We have browser use WebUI right here, which is really nice. We'll go over this in just a second. We have another wrapper, which is built upon the Open Deep Research CLI project. And then we have OpenAI's very own Deep Research, the $200 a month plan right here, which we're going to be testing and seeing the comparisons of all three. Because of course, a lot of these different ones have different bells and whistles, but when it really comes down to what matters, it is the output and the quality of that. All right, so we're going to start with OpenAI's Deep Research. So you'll see here the prompt is I'm doing a YouTube video comparing the deep research of three different tools. The first tool is OpenAI's new Deep Research tool, $200 per month, but you also get access to O1 Pro, higher SOAR limits, and probably more. OpenAI Deep Research, and then giving the blog post link. The second and third are open source alternatives to OpenAI's Deep Research. The second one is WebUI by browser use. So WebUI by browser use right here. So a link to the repo, a link to browser use website right here, and mentioning that you can use any LLM with this project. The third one is open source deep research right here, which is a CLI tool, and then linking to the GitHub repo right here. It uses Firecrawl, linking to the Firecrawl API docs right here. But someone made a GUI for this project, so you don't have to use the CLI, and it's called another wrapper right here, open source deep research, and linking to the repo. And they even have a cloud version, which is here, and then linking to the cloud version. Please do an in-depth comparison between the closed source OpenAI Deep Research and the two open source alternatives and weigh the pros and cons as to which one my viewers should choose. Now, when you're using Deep Research, you have the option to select your models. So typically, you're probably going to want to use either O1 Pro or O3 Mini High. For this example, we're going to be using O3 Mini High. Now, the reason we're using this is because one, it is super powerful. It's a lot faster than O1 Pro. And this is also going to be the same model that we're going to be using to test the other deep research tools. So we're giving it an even playing field between the comparison of the output. So we'll go ahead and run this right here, and you can see that we get a few different follow-up questions. So it's saying that's a great idea. To make sure we can do a useful and in-depth comparison, could you please clarify a few different things here? Okay, so I'm going to use these follow-up questions for pretty much all of them, so we can give every single project the exact context for their search. So to go over these follow-up questions, we have evaluation criteria. So are there any specific factors you'd like to focus on? Accuracy, speed, ease of use, integration options, cost, flexibility, data privacy. I said all the above. Target audience, is your target audience more technical devs, researchers, or general users? I said both, so have both options, but more devs and researchers probably. And then use cases, do you want to focus specific use cases such as academic research, market analysis, content creation, or something else? We're going to go all the above. And then depth of comparison, would you like a simple pros and cons breakdown or a detailed structure analysis with performance benchmarks, screenshots, and potential user testimonials? I said detailed as possible, but also have a simple version. And then preferred format, would you like a summary table in addition to the written comparison? I said yes, and also give unbiased opinions based on what each specific user may want to use for their specific use case to get the best output. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and click send here. And as you can see, it's finally started its deep research right here. So as this is going, let's go ahead and start doing the same thing for the other ones. So right now I'm on the another wrapper one, which is using the Open Deep Research CLI on the back end. And we're going to paste in that same prompt right here. And we're using O3 Mini. You could also use some other models right here. Unfortunately, this one is limited. You're not going to be able to use like a llama or anything like that out of the box. You could probably tweak it, but unfortunately you can't use it out of the box. Now, the one cool thing with this is we can adjust the breadth and the depth for this search. So by default, it's on 4 breadth and 2 depth. I'm going to go ahead just for the sake of this test and do 6 breadth and 3 depth. But you can make this even more in depth or less in depth depending on these settings right here. Now we're going to go ahead and send this. Okay, so it's asking some different follow-up questions. I'm actually just going to go ahead and paste in the same follow-up questions we used for the OpenAI one, just because I want to give it the exact same context. And now we're going to go ahead and press send. And now it's going to say starting in-depth research based on your inputs. So the cool thing with all these, like if we're looking here in the OpenAI one, you can see all the different activities going on right here on the right-hand side. So you can see it's going to Y Combinator, YouTube, GitHub, of course, and you can actually go through and track some of the activity and see how it's doing its reasoning as well as its researching. And you can see all the different sources right here that it's compiling, which is really cool. And you can do the same thing pretty much with the open source versions too. So we can see it's doing different search queries right here, and then doing different research, finding different results, processing them, and then generating new learnings. And then it's going to take those learnings and then be able to incorporate that into its new research that it's doing right here. So as this one is going, let's go ahead to our final one, which is browser uses WebUI version. Now, I'm not going to go over all the different settings here. As you can see, there's a lot of different configurations you can use. You can do agent types here, maximum run steps. So just like how you can change different configurations with the one we just showed for open source, you can actually do the same thing with browser use, which is really nice. And as you can see here with LLM configuration, we can select any LLM we want. We're going to use OpenAI right here, and we're going to use O3 Mini just like we use with all of our other ones. But like I said, you could use Ollama, different ones like that. And I'm going to show you actually in future videos how to use this with other models and showing you the different outputs that you can get using deep research with maybe some open source models or with some other closed source models. And I really like this because we can actually tweak a lot of different things like the temperature and all that good stuff. Over here in browser settings, you have some different options right here. So we can use your existing browser, keep browser tabs open, run browser without GUI. So in headless mode, you'll see once we actually start running this, it's actually going to open a browser if we're not running it in headless mode. And you're going to actually be able to see the agent do deep research within different Chrome browsers. So that's kind of cool. And you can actually kind of see like it's like almost a real person doing research, and you'll see the queries and everything. So I really like this. You can see the recording path, trace path, agent history. This has a lot of settings. So if you're going to want to use this one, I'd recommend checking my individual video I made on this where I go over all these different settings. Here you can run different tasks right here if you're just using like OpenAI's operator alternative. So this will actually do tasks. We're going to use the deep research to do research. So it's going to use that AI agent to open the browser and then take that information. It's going to scrape the page and then be able to do different queries and then generate the report that way. Here you see all the results information. The recordings will show up here. And then if you want to import or export a configuration, you can do that here. So I'm going to go ahead and paste in this same exact prompt right here. All right, so we're going to have the max search iteration to 3 and the max query per iteration to 2. And we're going to go ahead and run deep research right now. And as you can see, this one's a little bit different. When we actually run this, it's opening up 2 browsers on our desktop, okay? And this is actually where it's going to do the queries. So we can see OpenAI deep research versus WebUI versus open source deep research features comparison. And we can see the same thing right here with a different query in another browser. And if we look in our terminal right here, this is where you'll actually be able to see the live logs of what's going on. So new memories, task progressions, future plans, summary, different actions, etc., etc. All right, so while we are setting up WebUI, Open Deep Research as well as OpenAI's Deep Research are actually complete. So the one thing with this another wrapper right here, you'll be able to see the logs right here. It isn't as in-depth as OpenAI's logs. You can also go to the CLI right here and you'll see the logs that are how the CLI tool works. And you can see it's doing different searches, having different research routes, etc. The one thing is it doesn't show the time from what I can see within the GUI, which is kind of not the best. I wish it showed how much time it did for its research. But if you go ahead to the CLI, you'll be able to see that it did a request right here for this time right here, which is 156.32 seconds, which is equivalent to 2 minutes and 36.32 seconds. Now, if we go ahead and look at OpenAI's deep research, this one actually went for 11 minutes. Now, like I showed you before, you can change the breadth and depth to make it, you know, a little bit more in-depth or a little bit less in-depth. Whereas OpenAI's, you can't control that. Now with another wrapper right here, if you scroll to the bottom, well, one thing you'll be able to see the whole entire deep research right here, which is really nice in the UI, but you can also just download the report right here. So we'll download a .txt file. If we go ahead and open this up, you'll see the whole entire research report in Markdown file, which is really nice. You could feed this to another LLM if you want, or do whatever you want with this actual data. Now I went ahead and just pasted in the research report right here. So we'll go over it briefly. I won't be able to go over every single thing, but you can see here in-depth comparison between deep research tools. You can see a table of contents right here. So we have our introduction, you know, giving an intro to all 3 tools right here, an overview of the tools. So OpenAI, deep research, browser use, WebUI. So it's going over things like the model, the cost, the features, the strengths, limitations. We have browser use WebUI, so the model, the cost, the features, strengths, limitations. Open source, deep research, CLI, and GUI, going over the same things right here. And then evaluation criteria, so accuracy, speed and performance, ease of use, integration options right here, cost and cost benefit analysis, flexibility and customization, data privacy and security, and then deployment models and use cases. So deployment modalities, use cases right here, and then a summary table. So we can see here a full breakdown on a bird's eye view with cost, accuracy, speed, ease of use, integration, flexibility, data privacy, and then recommendations. So here with the another wrapper, Open Deep Research, for general users, it actually recommends OpenAI's Deep Research. And then for developers and researchers, it recommends the open source alternatives. And I don't know if I'd 100% agree because, general users may not want to pay $200 a month. All right, that's a huge factor for someone that's generally using it. A researcher or a developer may actually want to pay that money because it's an investment into most likely their job or their business. All right, so pretty in-depth right here. As you can see, it uses a bunch of different sources here. So it actually pulled from 19 different sources here. Now, if we take a look at OpenAI's deep research, it actually pulled from 27 different sources here, and it's very, very long and intensive. So let's go ahead and paste this into our doc. Also, one thing to note, the open source deep research, another wrapper, was 2,346 words and 18,954 characters. And the OpenAI's deep research report was 16,337 words and 100,364 characters. So it is a huge report. So we can see here the alternative comparison, a summary comparison table right here that's going over accuracy, aspect, speed. It's going in depth, like it's pulling out different benchmark tests right here and getting a lot of different data. We can see the speed, the ease of use. So very easy, moderate, giving the direct links right here, which is nice. Integration, we can see a cost, and for each specific one, it's going very in depth for each specific point. Flexibility right here, data privacy, accuracy right here, going over different links and sources. And I like how it gives the sources directly in the report instead of just giving them only at the end. And then speed here, so more different sources, very, very in-depth. Like I couldn't even go through this all, of course. Ease of use. Okay, so integration options, cost. Each section is super huge too. Like all these are very long. Flexibility, data privacy and security, and then pros and cons breakdown. So OpenAI, closed source, $200 a month. Pros, no setup required and easy to use. Integrated with ChatGPT. High quality models, thorough and reliable research process, citations and sources provided, maintenance and support. Cons, very high cost, limited usage, slow report response time, no customization or flexibility, closed ecosystem, data privacy concerns, required internet and public data, one size fits all model. And then browser use right here, open source, free and open source, multi LLM support, runs locally, browser automation capabilities, parallel processing and efficiency, user-friendly interface, highly extensible, integration flexibility, no fixed limits. And then cons, requires technical setup, resource requirements, maintenance overhead, not as polished as commercial product, learning curve for full utilization, security considerations dependent on external APIs, potential to misuse if not careful. And then the Open Deep Research CLI with GUI wrapper, pros, free and open source, replicates OpenAI's agent logic, adjustable parameters, modern GUI, parallel and efficient search, citations and markdown output, self-host for privacy, fast adaption and community support, flexibility to integrate or modify, lower resource overhead. And then cons, initial setup needed, requires API keys, limited built-in search choices, potential rate limits and cost surprises, maturity and stability, less general than browser use, monitoring and intervention, dual dependencies, OpenAI and Firecrawl, and then documentation support is community-based. Then going over use cases based on recommendations, and then a summary table of key differences. And that's it for that one. That's very, very long. And just as we finish that off, the WebUI report is done. So we can go ahead and see this. Now, this one is much, much smaller than the other ones. So if you want, you can actually download the report right here. But you'll also be able to access this in the folders right here. So if we go to our deep research folder right here in our temp folder. You'll see this is our last query, and we can see the different query results. These are all the different scrapes that it got for different sources. And then you can see the final report here. You can also see the record info right here. So here we actually got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We only got 6 sources. I will say, guys, I probably should have put it to higher different search iterations and max queries. I actually did do that initially, but I was getting an error. Are you tired of pouring thousands of dollars into appointment setters only to watch leads slip away? Imagine having a team of elite sales agents booking qualified appointments for you around the clock. No more wasted time on training, no more frustration with performance, and no more draining your budget on inconsistent and expensive call centers. Introducing Stride Agents, AI-powered appointment setters that work 24/7, never get tired, and book appointments while you sleep. Trained on thousands of successful conversations, our AI agents outperform human teams at just 1/10 of the cost. Join the ranks of businesses that doubled their appointments and booking rates in just a matter of weeks. Don't get left behind in the AI revolution. Visit strideagents.com now and transform your entire sales process with cutting-edge AI technology. It's time to accelerate your stride with AI agents. So see, I was getting these failed tries right here constantly, so I just put it back to a little bit lower, and then it was working. So I don't know if that's just something with me, or maybe it's some issue that it has. Okay, now unfortunately, at least as to what I can see, I don't see a spot where you can see the specific time that it was actually run for. I know when it was running it did show, but now that it is run, I cannot find it anywhere. And I don't see it in the logs either. I did check, and if you did have timestamps on, you can maybe see it. But I will say that it did take quite a long time. It took maybe, I would just guess, maybe about 5 minutes at least. And it only generated 661 words and 4,967 characters. So we can see here comparative analysis, overview of tools, comparative features, so cost and flexibility, usability and setup, customization and control, pros and cons, and conclusion. Now also too, I will say that this is the only one that didn't ask me a follow-up question once I gave it that initial prompt. So if I was to redo this again, I would probably give that prompt with the follow-up questions. So to make sure that you give all the context out front, you know, think of the different scenarios, because it won't ask you a follow-up question, unfortunately. So all in all, just to run over some of what I've seen with doing these tests, WebUI does give a bit of a shorter answer, I found. I mean, I did have the lower settings on, so maybe giving it more settings, it's going to give a longer answer, of course. But me personally, within this test, I say that it probably got maybe the worst output. But maybe if I did this test again and gave it more of that initial context that I gave in the follow-up questions, maybe it would give a better output. It did get the least sources, but keep in mind, it does have a lot of good flexibility with being able to use different models and test it. So I'm going to keep using it. I think it's still really good. Now, Open Deep Research did a really good job with its report. It's in-depth. I could have made it longer if I gave more breadth and depth, but it did a really good comparison, to say the least. And it cited, you know, a bunch of different sources, 19 different sources, which is really good. And then honestly, I would have to give the win in terms of the output here to OpenAI's deep research. I mean, it's very, very in-depth, and I think it probably maybe even like too in-depth, which is good, but you could also, you know, tone down some of the prompt if you want to get less information. And honestly too, guys, if you want to really get in-depth nitty-gritty comparison, you can go to this doc and read some of these comparisons that these AI models generate, especially the OpenAI one. It is pretty damn good, I think. Like I said, guys, if you want access to this complete document, just join our free Stride AI Academy. I'll leave a link down below where you can access it. Other than that, guys, that's pretty much it for this video. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. Are you going to be buying OpenAI's deep research for $200 a month, or are you going to use some of these open source alternatives? I'm personally going to be using both. I like open source. I really love open source. One, there's no limits on these. You know, OpenAI's deep research only gives you 100 queries a month. Yes, it is really, really powerful. And if you do have the funds and you're someone that's serious about AI, doing research and whatnot, it may definitely be worth the investment. Me personally, I do not regret investing the $200 a month to use this tool, as well as the other tools right now. It is pretty damn impressive. But I also really like these open source alternatives, and I'm going to be doing different tweaks with some of them, testing out different ways to use them with different LLMs and whatnot in future videos. So make sure to stay tuned for that. Let me know what your favorite one is in the description down below. And guys, if you just need a basic deep research agent or something that is really good, but maybe you just don't need to spend $200 a month, then these open source alternatives are very, very powerful nonetheless. Other than that, guys, that's pretty much it for this video on this in-depth comparison. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. If you're new to the channel, we upload videos all the time on AI agents, AI coding, business, growth, marketing, sales. So if you like the type of content, you got some value here, I really appreciate it if you subscribe, like the video, and comment down below. Thank you guys so much for the recent 17,000 subscribers, 20K on the way, guys. And then, like I mentioned, guys, if you haven't already joined our free Facebook group and Discord channel, stridecommunity.com, I'll leave a link down below. And then definitely check out our Stride AI Academy, where you can get all these free resources and a bunch of different stuff in here. And then also too, guys, if you run a business and you need custom AI solutions or custom AI agents like AI appointment setters, AI call centers, or whatever the case may be, book a call down below at executivestride.com/apply, and we can see if it's a fit or not. Or if you're someone that's looking to sell AI solutions, AI agents, AI services to other business owners, and you want our blueprint and protocol on how to actually do that, book a call down below and we can see if it's a fit to work together. Other than that, guys, I will see you in the next video. Keep hustling, keep grinding, and of course, guys, accelerate your stride. Take care.